Assalamu alaikum, family. Peace be unto you. You're tuned in to the Sajdah channel. I'm your host, Sajdah Wendy Muhammad. We're going to chat about a few things today, but primarily, I have a message I want to do about reparations. So be a friend, tell a friend, and we'll be right back after these few short messages and a beautiful prayer.
O Allah, guide me among those whom Thou hast guided aright, and preserve me among those whom Thou hast preserved, and befriend me among those whom Thou hast befriended. Bless me in whatsoever Thou dost grant me, and deliver me from the evil of what Thou hast judged. Surely Thou judgest, and none can judge against Thee, and he whom Thou befriendest is not disgraced. Blessed art Thou, O Lord, and exalted be Thee above what they set up besides Thee. I bear witness, nothing deserves to be served besides Thee, and I bear witness that Muhammad is Thy servant and apostle. Amen.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who in my judgment is the master historian, taught us that of all our studies, history is the most attractive, and it is best qualified to reward the researcher. History is most attractive. Why should history be most attractive? Because history is the recorded time of the human family in its struggle to overcome obstacles. There is no life that is without struggle. The Holy Quran teaches us that man, meaning man and woman, is made to face difficulties. And after difficulty comes ease. But it is history that guides us through difficulty. For if you know how people who had difficulty yesterday got through, and if your difficulty is somewhat similar, then today we also can get through if we follow the guidance of history. This is why Carter G. Woodson and many of our black giants fought for black people to know our history. Because in not knowing our history, we don't have a guide. And without a guide, we are lost. No wonder the Bible...
Assalamu alaikum, family. Welcome to the Sajdah channel. Peace be unto you. How's everyone doing this morning? I pray everyone is doing well, and then some. Wishing each and every one of you, let me just take a moment to wish each and every one of you more peace, more love, more goodness than you've ever experienced or imagined. And I just want to take a minute to soak into that a little bit. And so we don't do this every show, but we're going to do a quick 60-second meditation on more peace, more love, and more goodness for each and every one of you. So let's take a moment and close our eyes and take a deep breath. Inhale and exhale. And just feel all that peace coming over your body. All that love coming over your body. All that goodness coming over your body. Wishing each and every one of you more love, more goodness, more peace than you've ever experienced or imagined. You deserve it. No matter where you are, no matter what you're going through, you deserve it. Relax your face. And then gently take that last deep breath. Exhale. As you exhale, open your eyes and let's come to, hope you receive that love and goodness I was trying to send your way. So look, let's chat. Yesterday, you all may have seen posted on my social media pages that my preservation work, my labor of love, has been recognized by the city of Chicago. We are one of the 2025 Preservation Excellence awardees. And so it's going to be a big, it's going to be an event on May 19th. I'll bring you all more about that as it comes up. I'll take you all on the journey because we're documenting this, right? This is all part of history. This is going in the book. And so I just wanted to take a moment to say I'm grateful. It is and continues to be a difficult journey. The House Museum category in the city of Chicago, which is for residential homes that are historically significant or are in a historic district, but the awardees are among additional people other than, or additional homes that are also commercial, churches. So we were competing in that category, even though we're a residential home in a historic district. The preservation excellence includes any landmark, City of Chicago landmark building. Of course, we are National Historic Registry listed on there. It's just, I'm happy, extremely grateful. It's a very spiritual project, continues to be a very spiritual project. I tell people all the time, this was harder than building a hospital, harder than building a surgery center. Because, with the hospital or the surgery center, you figure it out up front, right? You get it all figured out, you sketch it out, you get it approved, as long as you're following the federal guidelines, and long as then it's just a matter of kind of babysitting your contractors and make sure that it happens. But it's all there. And in the case of a restoration like this, every single thing you get to is another piece of the puzzle that you have to figure out. So And then once you figure it out, you got to make sure you find the right people to help you. Got to make sure they do the right thing. A lot of people don't have patience. It's tough. It's hard. It's a lot of money. That's why we're always like, look, please donate. Speaking of which, we have a fundraiser coming up. So anyway, so on the award, you're going to see more on that. Next month is Preservation Month, and I hope to be doing some media around the importance of preservation and just letting you know the services that are out there and that are available for you. So stay close and stay tuned. We'll be talking about that. But we have a fundraiser coming up. It's called Black Opera in White. You all should have seen the video right here at the beginning. I'll show it before we go off the air. It is a celebration of Blackness. Go to sajdahhouse.com, get your opera tickets. You don't want to miss it. We only have 50 seats, so you need to get them. I was telling everybody, get your seats by today because you don't want to be scrambling, and I don't want y'all calling me because there's only so many seats that we can offer. It's a $50 donation to attend. That's nothing, to enjoy this beautiful spiritual music, which is really medicine, right? For our soul, it's medicine for our vibration. We have really carefully curated this set list. We've really taken a very spiritual approach to choosing the tones, the messaging. I think you're going to be impressed with what we put together here. This is part of our Arts, Culture, and Civilization Summer Series at the Elijah Muhammad House, also known affectionately as Sajdah House. And so I think you're going to enjoy it. But look, go out there, get it. It's not really a ticket. It's a $50 donation to get a seat. That's it. Oh, thank you, Nubia Latifa. Look at Nubia Latifa sending us this. Look at this, y'all. Yes, yes, and yes. So thank you. Hit that super chat button. And while we're talking today, go to Cash App, Sajdah Enterprises, or hit that super chat button. Let us know. Show us some love and appreciation. Let me know you received that love and abundance that I sent you, right? There's so much I could talk about today. Talked about that, the award. I don't think Sister Aletha's on today, but today is her birth anniversary. Sister Aletha is my longtime sister friend. I've known her so long. And we've known each other through, the loss of our fathers, both working inside the Nation of Islam and with very closely with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I'm really honored to be able to be blessed and to be of character, to be able to have a long time, sister friend, sister girlfriend, right? And I've been blessed in my life to have some really close sisters to me. I grew up around all boys, and I have a bunch of male cousins and boys and all that. So to have some sisters is a wonderful thing. So happy birthday, Sister Aletha. I'll see you a little later today as we do our little celebration. I'm excited for you. But when you have a friend that you've gone through some of the vicissitudes of life, we both lost our fathers through relationships, ups and downs. Girl, I remember when you was liking him. I remember you was liking him. That kind of thing. But yeah, it's an honor and it's a blessing, sis, to be your sister and to be able to say happy birth anniversary to you today. I'm wishing you many, 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 many more. And I pray that everything you want in life that you get, that you have, and that everywhere you go, you are treated with love and kindness. All right. Thank you again. Also, Sister Nubia Latifa, for that gift. Okay, family. Let's get into these reparations. I wanted to have this conversation about reparations because one of the things that we've been focused on doing on the show is getting us to look at business for Black people, look at business for ourselves in a different way. oftentimes when we look at these things, it's very much rooted in trauma. And while actually there's nothing we can do about that, because what we have experienced has been and continues to be very traumatic. But I think we want to work on healing that trauma and trying to see outside of that trauma if we can, because it's even bigger than our trauma. See, the trauma becomes our world, but this whole idea of reparations and all of that is even bigger than our trauma. And so, yes, there's the repayment for the pain and suffering that we endured. And then you have a lot of people that will say, well, I wasn't around when my parents did what you did. Some people even go so far as to say, if I was around, I wouldn't have done that. You probably would have did exactly whatever you're doing now. Whatever you're doing now for race relations is probably what you would have did back then. If you were just sitting on the sideline, talking and bumping your gums, now that's probably what you would have been doing back then. If you were fighting, trying to figure out how to escape, how to put a program together, how to do something, probably what you was doing back then. But a lot of times people like to say, well, I wasn't there. And while you may not have been there, and while you may not have been the one who inflicted the pain with your hand, we're talking about some compensation for that. But let's not forget the many industries that we covered last week that were built off of this free labor. See, the concept of free labor and the concept of that free labor being attached to skin color is very, very much tethered with the economics of this country. And so while you may say, I didn't have nothing to do with that, but there were systems that were created. So there may have been a system back then that wrote certain laws that prevented Black people or enslaved people from doing certain things. Reading, for example. What we have to understand is the epigenetics of those laws. So if at one point in time it was illegal for a Black person to read, then you say, okay, well, we fixed that law. But did you really? See, the way the system evolves is still rooted in what was illegal or legal back then. So even though you may have come along in the 50s and 60s, and maybe you said, but I wasn't down with no slavery, especially not in the 50s and 60s. But instead of taking a look at the overall condition of Black people as a result of being free labor for hundreds of years and writing policy that would help to heal, free, and correct that, we just kept rolling these things forward, and which now manifest as systemic racism. And so there's the pain inflicted as a result of that. But even if we go even deeper, let's talk about business. And I'm going to show you all a video today that may be shocking for some of you, because oftentimes we don't talk about the economic impact of slavery. See, if you've got 1 million people working for you for free, you absolutely can become a world superpower. There are industries from banking and insurance and manufacturing. Some people say, well, look, we were up north. We didn't have slaves. Even if you didn't physically have a slave, there were slave industries and money that was being funneled to the north to support the slave trade in the South. Simple as making shoes, making what they used to call that Negro cloth, tools, plows, seeds, distribution. Sugarcane and cotton may have been grown in the South, but where was it processed? If it was grown in the South and the raw material went up north, you processed it up north, you're still benefiting from the slave trade. So there are many, many companies. And oftentimes as a business person, I always say, man, I want to build a company that's going to be around for hundreds of years. Well, why is that the case? In many cases, because in many cases, those companies benefited financially from the free labor. So when you look at any balance sheet and you look at the line item that says salary and wages, that line item, take that line item out, make a zero there, free. You got these people giving their lives and they can't do anything about it. They're slaves. It's free. So take that line item out. That's enough to tip the scales of most of your businesses out here. You could turn a profit if you didn't have to pay for your wages. Think about it. How many of you out there as entrepreneurs have payroll today? Today is Friday. You gotta make that payment. What if you didn't have to make that? Well, what if you were able to take the money that you have to pay out today in payroll and reinvest it back in your business, and that person would still show up, still had to show up day after day after day. And as long as you kept your expenses for maintaining them at a low, like feeding them scraps of food, just giving them leftovers, making sure they just kind of lived in a little shack, spending the minimum, then that money that you would have spent on salaries, you can invest it back into your business. You could buy a house. You could do any number of things. So think about that the next time you're saying, yeah, but I didn't do anything. I wasn't there. And I know this is a tough subject. It's very emotional. People get angry over it. You know, you can get angry over it, but let's talk about it reasonably. Let's put together a model so we can figure it out. And then here's the other piece of it. You can't enslave people for hundreds of years and then just say, go ahead and go. Many of you have pets at home. And by no means am I saying that our ancestors are in any shape, form, or fashion like a pet, but that's how we were treated. Not even like a pet. But let's use your pet. Many of you have pets at home. You have a dog, you have a cat, and you've been raising that dog or cat sometimes 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. What if you just put them outside and said, go? I'm not feeding you no more. You can't come back in the house. You free. Would your dog or cat know how to survive? Or would they go out here and get hit by a car? Or maybe if they were able to survive, what would happen to them? So in many cases during the Reconstruction era, we started to open our own businesses. Of course, we faced a lot of terrorism when it came to that. But just think about this. You do all of that, but then there's no investment on your part on how to educate these people whom you've taken everything from. You kidnapped a group of people. You brought them here. You put them on your balance sheet next to the cattle and the crops and the horses. You bred them in a manner very similar to breeding horses. Okay? You sold the offspring. You beat them. You killed them. You didn't let them get educated. They don't know how to critically think. You did all of this stuff. Don't you think that there's an investment that you should make because of the systemic things that you have damaged them with during Reconstruction? Then here comes the terrorism. Here comes Jim Crow, right? We keep going. You got the crack era. And there are studies out here that show that these things have been systemically done to us. You even had the I forget what it was called, but they were just locking people up after the abolition of slavery, putting people in jail, creating these chain gangs, and then the companies would rent the prisoners or the chain gangs, and the chain gang members had to work for free. All of this is a terrible, terrible, terrible history. That's why you can't tell us that we're not a divine people, because we're still here, looking good and sitting down going, look, let's strive to work this out. Let's figure this out. We have not went to war. We have not caused a revolution. We are generally nonviolent people. We're not tearing stuff up. We're not doing stuff to people. You put us in charge. We're always the most fair of them all. But let's think about reparations, and let's add in the economic impact and the funds needed to invest. This is why we need to separate. This is why, because we have to go someplace to heal. We got to go somewhere and get ourselves together. We cannot do it because we've tried to do it since 1865. We've tried to do it within this system. Does reparations include, hey, give us the state of Alabama? We'll take it. Let us go down there. Let us start to build schools, build rehabilitation centers so that our people can learn and heal. Our children can get some freedom from all this autism and these bad foods that are out here. We can go and eat off the land and work on some of these epidemics that have been ravaging and rampant in our community. High blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, all of this stuff. Let us go somewhere and learn how to eat to live. And if we don't end up with a separate territory, which I believe we will, then we have to begin, people, to separate in our mind. You cannot heal if you're still participating in the same behavior that made you sick. You can't say I'm trying to get off drugs and you're still doing drugs. So there has to be some form of separation where you go away. That's why a lot of times when children do something and they're being bad, you put them on time out. You send them away. We need a break. We need to go somewhere or to create environments in our community where people smile at one another, where we can go and purchase healthy foods, where we can enjoy each other and not be afraid, not being afraid of black on black crime or cops doing stuff to us. We need some relief from these hundreds of years of trauma. And some money will help with that. Not only will the money help to build the facilities, but the money will help us. You can't say we don't work. Don't do that. You cannot say that the majority of Black people don't work and that we're not deserving, because we work. We wouldn't be the number one consumers. We wouldn't be spending all this money if we didn't have it to spend. See, y'all like to tell the story about Black people are the number, they spend trillions of dollars a year. They're the number one consumer. Well, we got it from somewhere. We had to make it. And if we was all out here stealing it, you'd have us all locked up. We know how the laws are. So we out here working. We out here getting it. And yes, we like to parade our people across that are maybe not doing what they're supposed to do. But many of us, the majority of us, are working contributors of society. And it's time that we received compensation for building, really, to be honest with you, not just this American economy, but the world economy. Because both in Europe and in America, it was the access to free labor that made these European countries number one. I can go on, but I want to go into this video about the bank's involvement in the slave trade. And I think it's something that you all will find extremely interesting. And the idea here is to broaden your mind. Yes, it's the payment for the pain and suffering. But there's also a business side to it. Let's check this out. Let's check it out.
Did you know that the modern banking system as we know it today has deep roots intertwined with the institution of slavery? While many consider banks as institutions for saving and investing, their historical role in slavery illustrates a darker chapter in business ethics. Welcome to Aggressive Intelligence, where we explore the truth behind business history. Today, we will unravel how banks financed the brutal system of slavery across continents. The banks have long played a major role in the convoluted relationship between capitalism and slavery. Beginning in the 16th century with the start of the transatlantic slave trade, the development of banks really started to create much-needed capital and insurance in the roles that slave traders and plantation owners had to play. During the first years of the Atlantic slave trade, monopolies were held by the European powers, mostly by the Portuguese and Spanish, and banks granted loans for voyages across the ocean brought enslaved Africans to the world. As slave labor demand grew, so did the operations of banks that were increasingly treating enslaved individuals as financial assets. Soon, the Dutch, British, and French banks followed suit, offering financial backing for both the ships transporting humans and the plantations that exploited them. It was an economic alliance that would strengthen colonial empires and enrich many financial institutions, while intertwining their fate with the horrifying institution of slavery. This collaboration between banks and slave trade did not end in Europe, but extended to North America. American banks, especially the ones in the southern states of America, started giving loans by retaining enslaved people as some kind of collateral, thereby increasing the plantation owners' capacity to expand their plantations. The system nailed the financial structure of slavery, furthering it into a very profitable venture, not only for banks and traders, but very detrimental to the lots of enslaved individuals. The involvement of European banks in the transatlantic slave trade was instrumental in shaping the financial landscape of the era. One significant player was Barclays Bank, which dates back to 1690, and had several early partners connected to the slave trade, including those who owned plantations in the Caribbean. The bank benefited from investments linked to slave owners, establishing itself as a key financial institution entwined with colonial exploitation, though it didn't engage directly in slave trading. Another such institution was Lloyd's of London, initiated in a coffee house in 1688 and becoming the major underwriter of marine insurance during the slave era. It insured slave ships and human cargo which those vessels carried. Most founders, like Simon Fraser, were deeply invested in the economy of slavery since they owned great numbers of enslaved people. Lloyd's contributed to the slave trade by reducing the impact of risks from such voyages. Thus, it helped give that industry impetus. Other banks, like the Royal Bank of Scotland, which was established in 1727, are also implicated through their connection with slave-owning directors. It has been determined that many of the early leaders of RBS provided loans to plantation owners and benefited from investments related to slavery. This connection further emphasizes how much European banking influenced the rise of slavery, whereby the proceeds from such ventures contributed toward further economic growth and solidified Britain's status as one of the major slave-trading nations. American banks actively developed the institution of slavery, above all in the South. Southern banks took loan collateral in the form of enslaved people directly, such as the Citizens Bank of Louisiana and the Bank of Alabama. These financial institutions enabled plantation owners to greatly expand their operations, in that they could secure substantial loans using human lives as assets. and tied their financial success with the exploitation of enslaved laborers. Major financial institutions such as J.P. Morgan Chase, whose history reaches back through the Canal Bank and Citizens Bank, acknowledged that their predecessor institutions accepted some 13,000 enslaved individuals as collateral in the decades leading up to the Civil War. When plantation owners defaulted, as many did, these banks took ownership of enslaved people and sold them to recover debts, further exemplifying just how deeply financial institutions were mired in the brutal reality of enslavement. These practices had terrible consequences for the many families and communities which were torn apart by forced sales. In addition, even northern banks indirectly engaged in the slave economy. Institutions such as Citibank and Bank of America provided loans to finance the cotton trade of southern plantations, whose production depended on enslaved labor. Even companies like Brown Brothers Harriman granted financing to plantations for their operations, taking a profit en route when the industry was thriving. This interrelated system of banking and slavery not only contributed to the economic structure of the era, but created legacies of inequality that remain with us today. The insurance industry played a very significant role in perpetuating the institution of slavery through policies covering enslaved individuals. Companies like Baltimore Life Insurance dominated this niche market by underwriting policies to allow slave owners to financially protect their investments. By the eve of the Civil War, over 2/3 of new policies were for enslaved individuals, reflecting a widespread acceptance of this morally reprehensible practice as a normal business operation. Starting in the 1830s, numerous insurers had begun expanding their operations and offering slave risk coverage. Firms competed with each other to meet increasing demand. The Richmond Fire Association and Virginia Life Insurance Company joined the industry, and every effort was made to ensure access to protection for slaveholders and enslaved workers. Commonly, the insurance rate on enslaved lives was twice that of their white counterparts, evidencing how an undervaluation of black life is constitutive of profit-making. Most notably, the New York Life Insurance Company also participated in this practice by selling hundreds of policies insuring enslaved people. These were around 1/3 of the total issued policies by the company during the middle of the 19th century. The type of claims from these policies, usually made upon the enslaver, is what fundamentally dehumanized enslaved people into not being treated as people, but as commodities within a system designed for economic exploitation and racial inequality. Banks also financed many of the infrastructure projects at places where enslaved labor was used. Railroads, ports, and canals from that period were often built using enslaved labor, meaning financial institutions are implicated in perpetuating the institution of slavery. Such infrastructural projects ease transportation of goods produced by enslaved labor and further reinforce the economies of those regions dependent on slavery. For example, from 1836 to 1842, the Georgia Railroad and Banking Company employed enslaved workers for its construction projects. This was not only a case of banks providing the financing behind slavery, but also spoke to the deeper reliance on enslaved labor across society for economic advancement. Enslaved people were integral to constructing the transportation networks that would drive the economy. Accordingly, financial institutions provided loans for infrastructure, ensuring that trade routes employed in the transportation of enslaved labor and the goods they produced were efficient. The abolition of slavery in different parts of the world created important financial adjustments, especially for banks that were strongly connected with the slave economy. In the case of the British slave abolition of 1833, for instance, the government set aside £20 million as compensation to former slave owners for their lost property. The Bank of England was key in distributing those funds for the enrichment of former owners of enslaved people. This compensation scheme did not include the formerly enslaved, and was mostly for the protection of the slave owners' economic interests, while at the same time allowing the banks to handle loan defaults effectively. The financial architecture remained abnormally skewed to favor the very few who had capitalized on slavery, while the recently freed people continued to face many systemic barriers to basic economic security and opportunity. As institutions with historical ties to slavery continue to operate, their past actions contribute to ongoing wealth inequality and systemic racism. The financial profits reaped from slavery established a pattern of economic dominance that persists today, with significant impacts on African American communities. Recent studies link the wealth generated during the slavery era to the wealth gap we see today between black and white households in the U.S. The financial practices established during slavery laid the groundwork for a wealth accumulation system that excluded black Americans from truly sharing in the economic prosperity generated by enslaved labor. Understanding this history is crucial for addressing modern economic injustices. Furthermore, many banks have begun to confront their past by acknowledging their ties to slavery, issuing public apologies, and even initiating reparative initiatives. The conversation surrounding reparations and economic justice continues, reflecting the long shadow cast by the financial institutions that once profited from such inhumane practices. In recent decades, as knowledge of the bank's role in historic slavery has grown, various institutions have stepped into the daylight and declared their involvement. Most notably, J.P. Morgan Chase announced in 2005 that its predecessor banks took on some 13,000 enslaved individuals as collateral, and eventually came to own approximately 1,250 when borrowers defaulted on loans. Their apology was an important moment in recognizing the deep-seated impacts of slavery on modern financial practices. Similarly, other institutions like Citibank and Wells Fargo had also been criticized for their past ties to slavery. Citigroup acknowledged that its predecessors likely benefited from dealings with those who were slave traders. Though an apology does indeed mark an attempt at coming to terms with the past, the questions of reparations and restorative justice have gone mostly unaddressed so far. The harder challenge facing these institutions is transforming words into actual practices that effectively deal with the long-lasting devastations of slavery among the affected communities. Thank you for watching Aggressive Intelligence. If you found this exploration of banking and slavery insightful, don't forget.
I know this is a lot, and I'm sorry, I'm one of those nerdy persons who has studied the history of economics, the history of the American economy, the European economy, but I'm very clear on how the slave trade created so many industries and strengthened the euro, as well as the American dollar, and which means that you're going to see this kind of ebb and flow. And so now, as America begins to fall and the global economy begins to even itself out, now the question becomes, how do you compensate us for holding you up all those years? And let me tell you something, even to this day, do you know how many products and services are created that we create out of our pain? We create advocacy groups. I've done it myself and 3 other sisters. We created a coalition of Black house museums. We created that out of our pain. And we create these organizations. We create inventions, right? I was talking to someone the other day about, excuse me, the Negro Opera House. We create these institutions out of our pain. We create cultural phenoms that are monetized, but we create it out of our pain. Hip hop was born out of our pain. People in urban cities, those of us in urban cities who wanted somebody to see what was happening in these urban cities, because there was no internet. There was no television coverage. You know, the revolution was not being televised. Neither was the abuse and all of that. So you had rap music, you had hip hop, which later was labeled as a genre that was out here talking about it. We had music in the 70s that, like Marvin Gaye, was going on, and Gil Scott-Heron, Curtis Mayfield, who were talking about what was happening in the ghetto. And then a new rap form we developed talked about that pain of what we were going through. And then all of a sudden, it's no longer, you know, a genre that is owned and monetized by us. You remove the Black, and this is something we have to stop letting, we can't even say let them do anymore, because we give it up. Because we get so thirsty for a couple dollars that we say, you know what, I'm going to just stop. I'm going to help other people. I'm going to stop being Black. I'm going to stop rapping about stuff that happens in the Black neighborhood. I'm going to forget about being a conscious rapper. And so when you remove that and you allow yourself to be removed because we don't value ourselves. See, I want us to remember who we are. This is the thing that's so powerful. One of the things that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us, that Allah came to remind us of who we are, to bring us back to ourselves. See, and when you remember who you are, you won't be so quick to remove yourself from things, right? Think about all the inventions. We're the ones who are the domestic workers. We're the ones thinking of, man, it's hard bending down on this floor and ironing. Let me create an ironing board so I can stand up and not tax my back and iron up here. That was a product, and there's so many inventions that were made out of our pain because we were tired. It was too much. Look at the cotton gin, Eli Whitney. We're tired of picking this cotton by hand. We need a machine. We need something that's going to expedite this, make this a little bit easier on us. So we're constantly inventing and creating products and services, but they're either taken from us or we give them away in exchange for a couple of dollars, or simply because we don't value ourselves and we get scared. We're scared of being called the Negro such and such or the Black such and such. Or we're just scared of being the face of it. And somebody comes along and says, hey, you should let so-and-so be the face of this. And then we go, okay, yeah, that's a good idea. So I just wanted to share this today, to open us up, to get us to think about business in a different way. And I want you all to start documenting your history, start paying attention. I'm working on some tools that will help you to do that, to help you document and monetize. And I'll share that more as we begin to roll that out. But remember, reparations is, yes, important. And yes, it's about compensation for the pain and suffering, but it's also about compensation for a world economy that we built and have upheld with little or zero compensation, even with the deficits that we suffer. It's time to reinvest into us. To me, we're the most investment worthy. If they want to look at us as commodities, we're the most investment worthy commodity that they got. But instead, it's like, no. See, I want you to understand how racism is tethered with the economy. This is why it's so difficult for people to even conceptualize paying us. And I think we have to be intelligent about it. I think we have to create systems and figure out the best way to do it. We definitely need to separate. We need some separate schools where we can go and deal with our problems. We need some separate businesses that can serve and introduce much needed goods and services into our community, because we have special needs. We have a special illness. We have a special sickness. We have special diseases because of what has happened to us over the course of 400 or more years. And so we need to go somewhere where we can repair and rehabilitate and think and understand what love. We need time out. We need some time out. Whether it's a tax break or several tax breaks, going to our separate territory, free education. There's a number of things that I think that we can do. And I think that we can start on local level and determine how those reparations can be distributed. Whether is it in the form of a check? Is it in the form of some kind of educational or housing voucher? Is it in the form of tax breaks? Is it in the form of revenue sharing? Those things have to be worked out. We need actuaries on the case. We need to statistically really study it. And we really need to sit down when we're studying it and determine how it's going to impact the local economies as well as the state, federal, and world economies. And, let's figure this thing out. We don't want to send our people into a burning building. But I think we have to figure it out. And I would definitely implore that we take a look at the model and the template introduced by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I can bring that to the table. All right, family. Thank you all for joining today. I hope you got something out of this. Thank you, Sister Monica, for being present. I see you, sis. Wa alaikum salam. Nubia Latifa, thank you for your gift today. Really appreciate you. Let's see. I see you, Regional Sky Girl. She says she's in a special city today. I see you, Brother Lamont is in the house. Thank you so much, sir, for joining, and thank you for your continued support. Look, go on our Instagram at Sajdah House and support the winning of the award. We're 2025 Preservation Excellence Award winners with the Elijah Muhammad House. And but anyway, we'll come back tomorrow and I'll talk a little bit more about the spiritual restoration that required spiritual resurrection. All right, family, I love you all. As I said at the beginning, I'm wishing you more goodness than you've ever received or imagined. Please go and get your Black Opera in White tickets. Get them today. I know it's payday for a lot of y'all. Make your donation, your $50 donation. Get your ticket and come with us. Wow, we're going to just infuse the environment with medicine, the medicine of music. You don't want to miss it. All right, family. I will see you all, inshallah, tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. right here for Sajdah Saturday morning coffee talks. Don't forget to tune in.